is Chantel with Hey Homegirl, and I'm here today to tell you how to pass your real estate exam on the first try, like I just did a month ago. So everything is fresh in my mind, and I wanted to share the things that helped me the most. So if you see me looking down, I'm looking at my notes. First things first, and it's not a tip, but it's just like obviously what you need to do that people procrastinate on doing is to schedule your test. So many people will schedule and they'll keep postponing, and some people just don't even schedule it. And I don't understand why. Like, you just went through real estate school. Schedule your test. That's first things first. I suggest 2 to 3 weeks from the time that you schedule it, so you give yourself enough time to really study it, especially if you haven't been in school. If you have and everything is still, there and you still got it, you got the momentum going, then you can probably schedule about a week away. But I think the sweet spot is 2 to 3 weeks. Beyond that is really pushing it, and it's gonna make you, I feel like that's gonna make you more nervous, and it's gonna just be kind of dreadful. So 2 to 3 weeks, schedule your exam right now. Okay, so let's get to the tips. Tip number 1 is you have to get rid of your distractions. You really have to, maybe put social media on the side, maybe turn the TV off. You have to, anything that will get in the way of you studying, you gotta have the willpower right now to get rid of it, or at least limit your time with it, because right now this test is your priority. You got 2 to 3 weeks. You have to utilize your time, and that's gonna lead us to number 2. Speaking of utilizing time, you really wanna set aside time to study and come up with a really consistent time to study, because otherwise you'll just study whenever. And sometimes studying whenever for me didn't work, because whenever I didn't have myself on a schedule, I would just I find myself studying less, knowing that I needed to study more. So I would say if you have to wake up an hour early, do that. If you have to go to sleep an hour later, do that. If you have to study on your lunch break, then you just have to do what you gotta do. So at this time, schedule time, because time is of the essence in this scenario. And I'm sure you know time is of the essence in the book. And what does that mean? Comment below if you know what time of the essence means in regards to real estate. Okay, so step number 3, or tip number 3, these are not steps. Tip number 3 is probably the most important tip, so I want you to pay attention. Tip number 3 is to learn your learn language. It's something that I came up with that's kind of like your love language, which is how do you love the best? How do you learn the most efficiently? You want to find out what effectively works for you. And I think of when you were in school and you had a teacher, you had a teacher who taught and you just got it, it just clicked. And then you had another teacher who taught and you just no matter what they did, learning was a struggle in that classroom because the teacher's teaching style was not compatible with your learning style. So you want to learn the best way that you learn, literally. So for me, cue cards, I don't feel like cue cards work that well for me. Reading, just only reading, I don't really feel like that works that well for me. So I like to switch it up. And here's what worked for me. Taking the quizzes at the end of the chapter and at the end of the books, that worked a lot for me, because what that did was show me my weaker spots, and I learned from, my mistakes, which is, a life lesson. I like to learn from my mistakes. So what that really made me think of is every time I saw the question again, because you're gonna take them over and over, I know what I got wrong last time. I went back and I read it, so now I understand the concept and I know it the right way now. So taking quizzes helped me a lot, and it showed me my weak spots, and I think that you should definitely do that. Quizlet was a lifesaver. Quizlet is an app where you can take tests online, you can do vocab, you do word matches, and they have a lot of different ways to learn on Quizlet, which is what I liked. And then I did like that it was an app, so you can do it on your phone, in your car, not while you're driving. but you can do it in your bed. And it was just another way to get out the book and switch it up. And speaking of that, YouTube, you're here, and subscribe to this channel because we'll be doing some studying up here. But YouTube worked a lot for me, and the channel that I will credit the most during my studying journey was Prep Agent Joe, and I'll link him below because it's super helpful. But I didn't want to buy a package because I'm cheap, and you know, real estate is gonna be eating up a lot of my funds. But if you need to do that, do it. For me, the webinars that he had on his page, the practice tests that he had on his page, they were just good enough for me, and they helped me out a lot. Also, podcasts. There are some podcasts out there, and I believe he has one as well, that are good for when you're walking or you're, you know, just cleaning up. It's just good sometimes to switch it up and get out the book. Tip number 4 is, if you can, oh wait, is that 4 or 3? Yeah, it's 4. Tip number 4 is, if you can, speak to someone who's recently taken the test. If you can't, stay tuned for one of my next coming videos, because I'm not going to jump the gun here, but let's get to this first. If you can, speak to someone who took the test recently. I lucked up because I spoke to a lady I found on a Facebook group who just took her test, and she actually didn't pass. But I talked to her, she's from my state obviously, and she told me everything that she remembered being on the test, all the concepts that she remembered that she wasn't ready for. And I wrote everything down, and I went back and I studied those things, and I'm glad that I did because it made me just a little bit more prepared. And a few of the things that she talked about was on the test, and those were things that I wasn't necessarily studying, because I feel like sometimes we get stuck in like the major points of real estate that everyone needs to know, that we forget to study all the little nitty-gritty things that can, you know, easily escape your mind. So I'm glad we spoke. That helped me a lot. After I took my test, I did the same thing she did. I went home. I was excited, but I made sure that I wrote a long list of everything that I remembered being on the test for national and the state of Connecticut. So if you're in Connecticut, you definitely want to see that next video. But it's not answers, it's just the concepts that I remembered. So I'm going to be doing a video on that. Hopefully, I'm assuming the national test is national. So what I saw in the nationals, hopefully your state might have. So, but even if it doesn't, watch the video anyways, and it's going to come up. Because I still think it's going to be helpful, because it's just some things you forget to study. You can't study everything, you know? So, do that. Tip number 5. Before I get to tip number 5, those were before the test tips. These are tips for on exam day. So tip number 5 is to, on the day of exam, to do anything that you can do to try to relax a little bit, because it's not the end of the world, and it's not life or death. So try to take a chill pill on that day. I don't suggest studying. Remember that the worst thing that can happen on that day is you don't pass your test. And after that, you can just reschedule. So literally, life will go on, but we want you to pass. Obviously, you most likely will pass. I can't make no guarantees, but I feel like, you know, if you don't, it's not the end of the world. Just relax a little bit, you know? Tip number 6 is to eat, pee, and be comfy. On your exam day, right before your exam, probably an hour before, try to eat something. You might not have an appetite, but try to have something on your stomach. You don't want to be in there with your stomach growling and interrupting other people taking their test. You don't want to be in there, oh, and before, use the bathroom, go pee or whatever before you take your test, because I don't know if they let you out to use the bathroom, But then even if you don't want to be there, uncomfortable and holding in your stuff. You want to be as comfortable as possible. You want to be fed and emptied out because you just don't need any other distractions on that day. You're going to be sitting in front of this test. You're going to be nervous. So don't have multiple things stacking up against you. So eat, pee, and be comfy. Eat, pray, love. Eat, pee, be comfy. Just, that's my advice. Tip number 7 is simple, and that's to pray. If you have faith, I suggest you say a prayer. I'm sure I don't have to tell you that, but if you needed a reminder, pray. Pray until something happens. Pray until you pass the test. If you don't have faith, you might have it on that day because you'll just be looking for anything, just a lucky rabbit or something. But pray. I listened to a really good YouTube video with this girl, and I'm gonna try to find her and link her below because she had a really good prayer for exam day. And I felt really encouraged after watching it, and I'm glad that I did. I think I watched it right before my test, and it gave me a little bit of faith, and that's all you need on that day. So tip number 7 is to pray, right? That's easy. And tip number 8, go in there expecting to pass. You don't want to have any doubt on that day. You're gonna have a little bit of doubt, but you don't want to have like an overwhelming amount of doubt on that day. So believe in yourself. For me, I came in, I had my hair done, I had my eye makeup. I was like, I'm gonna look cute because I'm gonna pass this test and I'm gonna have a cute picture. That's superficial. But the point is, I went in there expecting to pass, and that was just a little incentive to pass. So don't expect to fail. Expect to pass. You did a lot of work. You just finished, or even if you didn't just finish, at one point you finished real estate school. You put a lot of work in. You put a lot of money in. You put a lot of time in. So now is go time. Don't doubt yourself now. So yes, tip number 7 or 8, expect to pass. And here's my final tip. Is for during your test taken. It's what worked for me. I hope it works for you. I've never heard of anybody talk about doing this, so this might be an exclusive. During the test, what I did, what I feel like made me pass that test was this is dramatic. So I sat in front of the computer. I looked at it. It looked like Windows 97 special. It looked real outdated. But so obviously I'm nervous. Obviously everything is just like frazzled in my mind at that point. I don't know what is about to go on. So I'm looking at the test. I just go through it. I breeze through, I flow through every single question, and I click on an answer that I think might be right. I finish. I don't submit it. You don't submit it. That took probably less than 20 minutes or maybe 25 minutes. And you have, I want to say, an hour and 45 or hour and 40 minutes. So I had over an hour left at the end, and I took a second to just breathe, woosah, and I have all this time left. I'm not worried about time. Now I can go back and go through everything thoroughly. And I know a lot of people say go with your first mind. In this case, your first mind is like off the wall, you're nervous, you're scared. But when you do it all and then you come back to it, 1, that takes a little bit of the nerve off because technically you just did it. 2, now you know everything that's going to be on the test. Nothing is a surprise. You don't have that surprise factor because you have an idea of what's on the test. Now you can like go back in your brain and recall really what you need to know. So I did all that and I came back. It's important. Don't submit, don't submit, don't submit. Obviously, don't submit. Go back. And then I went through every question with a fine-tooth comb, and I looked at every answer that I put, and a lot of them were wrong. So I got the chance to change about 20 questions, if not more. And I'm glad that I did that because I feel like going back the second time, I was more confident, I was more calm, and I was just ready to, you know, just conquer this test at that point. So I'm glad I did that. I suggest doing that if you're comfortable with that. But I really feel like because I did that and went back and went over everything for real, that's what helped me pass the test. So those are my tips. A lot of them are common sense, but common sense is not always common practice. So if you found value in this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, you know? And if you're in real estate school right now, leave me your test date below. If you passed your test recently, or even if you ever passed your test, leave a tip below that I might not have mentioned in the video. I have a lot of content coming up for you guys. Right now, currently, I just passed my exam. I'm looking at brokerages, so I'm gonna take you guys on that journey. Also, like I said, in one of the tips, I'm gonna be doing a video, look out for that, on what I remember being on the national and the Connecticut test. And I just have a lot of content. I look forward to you guys, you know, along the journey with me. And I'm looking forward to building a community. So yeah, like, comment, share this video, and subscribe if you feel inclined to do so. That's the end of this video, and I'll be seeing you guys around YouTube. Bye.